Hi there, my name's Colin and this is the Action Figure Resource video channel, the place for all the action figure news, reviews, tutorials and guides. Today I'm going to be taking a look at toy-biz's Spider-Man the New Animated Series, Series 7, released in 1996. This series was also known as the Special Collector's Edition. All the figures in Series 7 of Spider-Man the New Animated Series from Toy-Biz were based on characters or variants featured in the comic book and not the TV series. This was also the last of the series to use generic packaging, as from Series 8 each new release had its own unique title. This was to make it easier for retailers and distributors to distinguish between the different characters and series when reordering and restocking. It also made it easier for collectors to identify which figures they had and which they were missing from their collections. This line included Spider-Man 2099 with Spider Assault Weaponry, New Spider-Man with Venom containment gear, Total Armor Rhino with Anti-Spider Armor, Spider-Woman with Black Widow Assault gear, and Stealth Venom with Sneak Attack Symbiote. The first figure we're looking at today is the New Spider-Man featuring Reilly with his Venom containment gear. Researching these videos takes me weeks and hours of work and valuable time. I would therefore be grateful and appreciate it if you could subscribe below, click on the bell icon to be informed of all my future videos, and smash that like button. Also, don't forget to wait to the end of the video in order to download your free PDF guide to grading and valuing your action figures.
actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.
The first figure we're looking at today is the New Spider-Man featuring Reilly with his Venom containment gear. This figure featured the new Reilly Spider-Man costume, rather than the more traditional Peter Parker Spider-Man. Even the artwork on the backing card was changed to feature the new Reilly costume. The body sculpt on this figure is the same as the Spider 2099, Scarlet Spider and Web Shooter Spider figures, featuring a more slender and muscular body. The Spider logo on this figure is a lot bigger than on the Peter Parker figures and covers virtually his whole torso. Again, the paintwork is quite good, but there is a little seepage of red through the black in some places, and the webbing in other places does not match up or connect properly. Despite having the Reilly costume, he had a standard head sculpt, but with a darker outline around his more prominent eyes. Toy-Biz did a great job of replicating the look of the new costume with this figure. The red and light blue paintwork and silver gauntlets have been applied very well and with little overlap. The biggest difference with the colouring on this figure is that the Peter Parker costume had a much darker blue. His arms and legs are a solid light blue, except for some red and webbing that's visible on his fingers. Also, the spider webbing painting on his face is more pronounced and better applied than on previous figures. Although still far from perfect, it was a huge improvement on those. In some places, the web is either missing or doesn't match up, which should have been spotted in pre-production or quality control. But I guess because these figures were mainly targeted towards children, that they figured that it wouldn't matter too much. For articulation, there was a swivel head, pin-jointed elbows and ankle joints, as well as hinged jointed knees and swivel jointed hips and shoulders that moved up and down only, but not sideways. For accessories, this figure had a repainted rocket launcher that originally came with Nick Fury in the Series 5 release, but this time it came with black rockets instead of red. Also, this clipped onto his back and he came with a futuristic looking gun. I have checked on eBay and other auction sites, but have unfortunately been able to find any resellable prices for this. I would suggest that mint on the card, it would probably sell for around $30 to $50 and loose for between $10 to $20. The next figure we're looking at is the Total Armor Rhino with anti-spider armor. This figure used the same mold as the Series 2 Rhino figure, but with some added armor that clipped onto his body. His body, in fact, is exactly the same sculpt, even with the same coloring. The sculpting for this figure and the paintwork were exceptionally good, with plenty of detail, particularly on the head sculpt. The extra armor on this figure, which is also removable, clipped onto his shoulders, wrists and ankles. The ankle and wrist manacles were quite fragile and easily broken and are often missing from loose figures. For accessories, he came with 2 Flintstone style weapons, a hammer and an axe, which fitted quite well into his hands. For an action feature, he had a lever on his back that when pushed, his head popped up and down in his classic headbutting movement. Overall, this is a great figure, but as it's basically a re-release of the Series 2 figure, it's probably best to skip this one, unless of course you either missed it the first time round or are a completist and wish to have the full collection. Mint on the card, this figure sells for between $5.50 and $29.99, and loose for between $3.50 and $7. The next figure we're looking at is Spider-Woman with Black Widow assault gear. Back in the 80s and 90s, most action figure lines didn't have any female characters, as it was thought that boys wouldn't want to play with them. And when a line did have a female character, they were often short-packed and difficult to find. This figure is therefore reasonably hard to find on the secondary market and goes for good prices. This version of Spider-Woman was based on Jessica Drew, who never appeared on the TV show, so it is based on the cartoon book character. This figure was actually the same figure as the Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman released in the toy-biz I-Man animated line, but with different paintwork. The sculpting here is good, but not very character accurate because of this. The head sculpt is particularly good with a lot of detail, and the hair is also nicely sculpted. But it is just a shame it is the Julia Carpenter head sculpt and not Jessica Drew. Her female attributes, as already mentioned, were overly accentuated, to put it mildly, but maybe they were doing this in the hope that it would help the line appeal to a more mature collector. This version of Spider-Woman has her in a red and yellow costume. See below for a comparison between this version and the Iron Man version. This figure had swivel articulation on her shoulders and hips and pinned articulation on her elbows and knees. Mint on the card, this figure sells for between $4 and $19.99, and loose it sells for between $5 and $10. The next figure is the Stealth Venom with Sneak Attack symbiote. Stealth Venom came with two enormous alien-looking hands or claws that easily clipped on and off his regular hands. Although rather strange and weird looking and did not relate to anything on the TV series or in the comic books, they looked totally awesome on the figure and they were excellently sculpted. For this figure, Toy-Biz used the same mold as the Venom Unleashed figure, but being a stealth version of Venom, the figure was sculpted using a clear plastic. Also, the head sculpt used on this figure was the same Venom head sculpt that came with the Charmeleon figure. The only colour on this figure, due to his stealth mode, was a red spider emblem on his chest, red lips, black eyes and a blacked out mouth. He also had clear wraparound tentacles like those that came with the Carnage Unreleased figure. He had swivel articulation on his shoulders and hips and hinged elbows and knees with limited movement. There was a variant of this figure that featured black paintwork on the body, so basically the Venom Unleashed figure, but with a stealth head sculpt. The variant was also packaged in a stealth Venom packaging, which seems to be priced about the same as the actual stealth Venom figure. Mint on the card, these sell for between $3.40 and $34.99, and loose for between $3.99 and $14.99. It's also worth mentioning that the loose stealth Venom figure goes for a lot less than the standard stealth Venom figure. This is probably because it is basically exactly the same figure as the Venom Unleashed figure. So without it being in the packaging, it's almost impossible to distinguish between the two, except for the fact that there was a different head sculpt used. The next figure we're looking at is Spider-Man 2099 with Spider Assault weaponry. This was the first time that the Spider-Man 2099 was released as an action figure, and way before he became popular in the cartoon or as a game or movie character. As a result, few kids knew anything about him, and this meant that he was not a very popular figure when originally released. However, over time, as this character has become increasingly popular, so has this first release action figure, making it more difficult to find, and it sells at fairly premium prices. The Spider-Man 2099 had excellent sculpting and detail, and featured a perfectly red painted spider skull on his chest and head. He has pinned and hinged articulation on his elbows and knees, swivel jointed shoulders, and a swivel jointed head which could only be moved from side to side. He also came with a cloth spider cape and a flaming spider skull axe, which had either an orange or variant white skull in the center. He also had an oversized Gatling gun style weapon, similar to that used by Arnie in Terminator. Although these weapons were a bit of an oddity, the fact that they had no connection to the TV show or Spider-Man did not really seem to matter back then. Mint on the card, this figure sells for between $12 and $25, and loose for around the $10. That's all for this action figure line. Don't forget to watch my other videos on Spider-Man the new animated series. The next video in this collection will be on the Series 8 line that was also called Spider Wars. This line includes Cyborg Spider-Man with high-tech armour, Black Cat with cat scratching crossbow, Doppelganger with living alien spider trap, Doctor Strange with his mystic morphin cape, and Hydra Man with his aquatic arsenal. Also, I'll be taking a look at the Spider-Man vehicles and the oversized Spider-Man figures from toy-biz. Don't forget to download my free PDF on grading and valuing your action figures. Subscribe below, click on the bell icon to be informed of my future videos, and smash that like button.
actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.